Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Priyajit Debsarkar. I am your host for today's webinar series by Bridge Bangla Foundation UK. I'm joined by a very distinguished panel of expert speakers on Bangladesh. Our topic today is Bangladesh, the way forward. I'm not going to take much time speaking on the subject because I myself am very keen to listen to both of our panelists. So we will start with Charlotte Chakmov. She's joining us from Zurich in Switzerland. Apologies for the pronunciation. She's an expert on international affairs and she also works for the Swiss. I think she's a business journalist from Switzerland. She has also written a few pieces in the Dhaka Tribune, especially after the events of 5th of August last year. So, without further ado, I would like to call upon Charlotte to give her initial opening speech. Thank you very much.
All right. So as we talked priorly before, I'm a business journalist. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political correspondent. I'm just an economist. But I have been very vocal about press freedom. And the reason for is that I have a few friends in Bangladesh because I worked for the Daily Star 20 years ago. And so, some of these friends have been in prison. Some of these friends are hiding ever since this coup happened last year. And when the daughter of two of my friends, Fasana Rupa and Shakil Ahmed, who have been imprisoned unlawfully for a whole year now, almost, when she called me and said, my parents are in prison, I thought, well, this can't be. This must be a mistake. Maybe this is just a mistake by they're going to be out soon and this can't be this bad. And now we are in a year to this and they're still in prison. And I realized that this is a much broader issue and a much worse, the things are much worse than I ever thought they could be. So my point is that I really want to speak out for, stand up for press freedom and for basic human rights. I'm not in any political camp. I didn't even know the parties in Bangladesh until a year ago, even though I have been to Bangladesh many times. Not being interested in politics, I didn't even know the names of your parties until last year. I knew there are two ladies, fighting against each other sometimes, two party leaders, female ones. So I knew that, but that was it. And now I have been engaged in human rights work for this last year, besides my job. And I just try to free journalists. I think what happened to many journalists, I would say almost 1,000, have been sacked. They lost their jobs. They have no income left. About 100 and I think almost 200 have been charged with murder cases they have nothing to do with, and even in being in prison. So that's my take. I want to speak out for press freedom, and I want press freedom to be restored, and I want the journalists to be released. So that's my point.
Thank you, Charlotte, and very rightly so. We have had actually yesterday a very landmark article has come out in one of the leading Bangladeshi news portals known as Prothom Alo or First Light, and in it they say that they have done a research based on the different minority councils and their representative, and it is their estimate that almost 2,500 incidents have taken place between 4th of August and 30th of June this year. And the council, and I quote, the council stated the acts of violence included murders, violence against women, rape and gang rape, attacks on places of worship, arrests over allegations of blasphemy, forced occupations of homes and business, assaults on individual communities, forced resignations, and so on. So, just to name a few, these are very, very grave and very violent human rights violations which they have alleged, and we have seen going on. A lot of international media and other organizations are creating awareness of it. And now I would like to call upon Bob Lancia. He's joining us from Rhode Island in the United States of America. Just a little bit background on Bob. Bob is he's a former educator. He also served in the United States Navy as a chaplain. He's also served as a former member of the House of Representatives from Rhode Island, and he has actually observed the 1971 war of Bangladesh very closely. So I would like to call upon Bob to give his opening remarks. The floor is yours, Bob.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Very good. I got to say, when you and I first met, we were talking about the situation from 1971 and what transpired, and of course the the books you've written, a couple of books now, and the one about the concert at Madison Square Garden, and hoping that something like that would never happen again. And I think India's place in it right at the time too. And now we find ourselves I think, in a worse situation than I think we could have imagined. And I think this is a world stage right now. And I believe that the influence of both Turkey and Pakistan in Bangladesh is turning out to be a frightening scenario. And I also believe that India, not necessarily asleep at the wheel, but allowing what's taking place to take place as these countries, I think, trying to supplant India in the Asia theater. Of course, India has been preoccupied with China. Been a lot going on there. But of course, we had the recent terrorist attack, Jammu and Kashmir, and that was Pakistan backed. That's our understanding. But the regions around Pakistan, Sindh and Balochistan, Gilgit, Balochistan too, they're all fighting for independence. And Pakistan is, got the thumb, that militaristic thumb on all of them. And they talk about human rights violations, imprisoning people. What's it, Dr. Marhang in Balochistan? I mean, a Times Person of the Year. It is incredible what's going on in that whole Asia theater right now. And what concerns me is that our president, President Trump, being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm sorry, but guess what? Not the time. Not the time. And who nominated him? Pakistan? Are you kidding me? Pakistan? And it's just, I'm disappointed in the president and the role he could be playing and the slaughter that's happening even in Ukraine and has been happening, and allowing Putin to have almost free reign in that region, and Putin partnering up with China and China partnering up with North Korea and have North Korean troops fighting in Ukraine. I mean, the world stage is unbelievable right now. And I know our friend is an economist, but one of the problems we have now is the fact that the president is doing all this tariff stuff. And who is he punishing? Of all people, Bangladesh. They had a 15% tariff, and now they're talking about another 35, making it 50. And under the previous head of the government, that was one of the fastest growing economies. You and I talked about this on previous podcasts that we've done. And now the fear, the Islamicist bent that's happening in that country, and to your point, you're talking about your friends and things being imprisoned. I mean, it is going so far in a negative direction. It's frightening. And unless India steps in, unless the United States steps in, I mean, we are in big trouble. And so far, I'm not seeing it. Now, the president, of course, of Bangladesh did escape and is in India, supposedly, right? And it was under her that the economy and everything really grew. And now they're asking for her extradition back to Bangladesh. I don't think so. I don't think so. But that's what's on the table. It was in yesterday's paper. So it's a frightening scenario. And I'll leave it there for the moment.
Thank you so much, Bob. Yes, and you're very right. I think we did do a few analysis, especially post-COVID, how the Bangladesh economy fared compared to the rest of the emerging economies, and how under the previous Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina's leadership, the country was almost insulated from the backlash of the pandemic. And this leads to my next, probably the last round, Charlotte, is that you as an economist, how do you see this embargo of the tariffs on the ready-made garment sector? Because that is probably one of the key foreign revenue earners for Bangladesh. How do you see its effects, and especially when it translates to women and children, because they are a very, fragile part of the society who are dependent on these ready-made garments exports to the Western world?
Of course, that's terrible. I mean, that's the worst which could have happened, right? But to be honest, the economy has been in free fall ever since this coup happened last year. It's not just the tariffs which kill now the garment industries. I know a lot of people for example, in Western Europe, who said, well, we don't want to work with Bangladesh anymore because we are not sure how this is going to play out. We're not sure whether it's the garments are going to be shipped to us. There were factories were closed. People couldn't go work. There were demonstrations all the time. So a lot of people already have lost their jobs in the garment factory in the last 9 months. And if you look at the data, so I haven't looked at them now the last 2-3 weeks, but like a month ago or some before I left for the US, everything was down. Exports were down, imports were down. The unemployment is higher. I mean, this is terrible for the economy, and especially terrifying is that women don't dare to leave the house anymore. If you don't feel safe anymore, you're not going to go out earn money anymore. Even male, even men don't dare to go outside the house anymore. I mean, there is so much insecurity, unsafety. There's so much mob violence. People don't dare to go out for work anymore. And this is not good for any economy. I mean, not only the Bangladeshi one. Now, on top of that, you have, Trump's tariffs coming in. There is India closed the borders for some of the exports and imports. There is some closure of some waterways. I mean, this is all, and some landways even. So this is all terrible, right, for the economy. And if you want to restore that, well, the problem is that you destroy this very fast. But to build up the confidence again of Western, let's take the garment industry, of the factories here, to build up the confidence again that the supply chain works again with Bangladesh, that takes much more time. So once you destroy it in a very fast way. But to build up the confidence again will take much time. So that is I think the biggest challenge and biggest fear for Bangladesh.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very fascinating to get those points, and I find this quite contradicting because the chief advisor now, Professor Dr. Mohammad Yunus, he himself is a world-renowned economist, and he's got the Nobel Prize for Peace. So it is like almost it doesn't fit the bill that at the center of affairs you got this world acclaimed economist, and the country is going downhill, which is quite contradictory. So yeah, Bob, I think we'll come to the. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Do you allow me one more word on Mohammad Yunus? Mohammad Yunus is. Yeah, he's an economist. He should understand something about economics, but he's also very old. And I think whatever he's doing right now, or has been doing in the last 10 months, is just taking revenge. He always wanted to be a politician. He always wanted to have his own party. This is my personal opinion about him, but I met him a few times. And, he has always been, I think, more interested in himself than in the people's sake of his own country. And what he's doing now is he saved his own ass in some ways. He has become the politician he always wanted to be. He's not acting as an economist in the current role he's doing, because if he did act as an economist, he would act completely different, right? He would make sure the democracy is working and things go, he would try to build up confidence, would try to build up the country, law and order from the start. He hasn't done anything in that direction. So I don't really believe that he is that we should call him an economist at this point. At this point, he's just a politician for his own sake.
Quite fascinating.
Well, I think to your point too. I mean, think about what India had done in Bangladesh over the last few years. Invested over $7 billion in Bangladesh. It built roads and ports and power stations. It signed defense and trade agreements, and it even supported some counterterrorism efforts. Yet all this progress really has kind of been undone not just by local forces, but again, I think by a combination of geopolitical negligence and long-term, short-term diplomacy. Again, I think there's so much at play, and I think what's happening right now is a wake-up call, again, for India, but it also needs to be a wake-up call for the United States, for President Trump, and there isn't. It's not happening. He's going to prevent wars and this and that, but the situations are deteriorating in the Asian theater. The different regions around Pakistan and again Bangladesh, and I didn't realize the influence that Turkey, working in hand with Pakistan, is now looking to go into that area and supplant really India. And India again has been so focused, I think, on China. But India has a big role to play. I mean, they are one of the huge superpowers right now, and they need to act like it, and they're not, and that's disappointing to me as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of Modi, but his response has been similar, I think, to Trump's response, no response, and I think these two need to collaborate and get together and really focus on this region more than they are. But other democracies as well need to get involved. And until that happens, what's happening in Bangladesh, to our friend's point, it's bad now. I don't know how much worse it can get, but some critical intervention needs to take place by the democracies in the region, but the two big dogs, really, India and the United States. And until that happens, I think Bangladesh is back on the brink of back in 71, and we can't have that. But that terrorist attack recently, again, Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistani backed. I mean, that to me is an example of what is happening and what can happen and what is happening in that region. And it's frightening. It's frightening. And, to your point about people not wanting to go out, can't trust the economy. Certainly tariffs are going to be a small part of that if nothing's working. So it doesn't matter if there's tariffs or not because nothing's working. But that's what we're finding ourselves. And again, my friend, if when we first started talking about, celebrating, the liberation and, what happened in the museum and this and that, but to go from our conversation when we first met and became, involved with each other to see where we are now. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around it right now, what's transpired, in this last year. And there's a lot needs to be done, and I got to honestly say, I've been following, don't know why it happened, but some people, reached out to me, but with Balochistan, which again is just one of the regions around Pakistan. I mean, I would like to see Pakistan just go away and all these regions to be free, because it has to happen, because the human rights violations, the things that are happening to critical leaders there as well. And even in Bangladesh, this needs to really be addressed. Has the United Nations addressing this? I don't think so. Nothing is happening. And, and again, Dr. Marang, in Balochistan, one of Time's 100 influential people, she's imprisoned herself. And where's the outcry? Where's the world getting involved? Nothing is happening, and it's really ticking me off. And someone needs to speak up. I've been involved in politics. I did run for Congress back in 2020. I was running in 2022, but the party asked me to step aside for another candidate who was a terrible candidate. But I did. I was the good soldier, a good sailor. But 2026, I'm looking to do something else, and it might be United States Senate. It might be Congress, House of Representatives. But it gives you that platform that you don't have to speak out on these issues. And I take the long view. I look around the world. I'm not, home based, just looking here. I'm looking around the world, and there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. And I'm sorry, the president's not doing it. And if he gets a Nobel Peace Prize, honestly, and I hate to say this, but I'll be disappointed because he doesn't deserve it at this point. There's a lot of work to be done. And now I hear that Russia's using chemical weapons possibly in Ukraine. They tried to assassinate, kidnap a Russian, dissident in London and, destroy his business. They burned down a business of Ukraine. I mean, these things are happening. So we look at Bangladesh. It's a microcosm of what's happening around the world. And I'm sorry, the UN needs to step up, United States needs to step up, and India needs to step up. And until they do, this stuff will not stop. And I'm not seeing that right now. So I don't know our economist friend or yourself what your view of it is, but that's what I'm seeing. And I'm getting frustrated because I'm not seeing the response needed at this point. So I don't know what you folks have to say.
I mean, speaking as you speak about, foreign countries, the UN, I've been, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of mails, conversations I had with embassies around the world, with the UN, with, Volker Turk. We have been deposited the complaint upon the UN, on behalf of Rupan Chakil, like a few months ago. And there was a letter from the independent, from Irene Khan. She's Bangladeshi, by the way. She is the authority over the free press, upon on behalf of the UN, upon the UN, and she has been very helpful with her letters, to Yunus and everything. But other than that, there's little wheels are ticking, are turning. But the big response, as you said, I have been missing for 12 months now. There's little progress we're making, and we have some signs from Geneva now. I'm sitting in Zurich. Geneva is not far away. I have some signs, that slowly but surely people at the UN are waking up and realizing that Yunus is not the savior, but probably a problem rather than a savior for Bangladesh, because it's working together with the wrong people. So, slowly but surely something is happening. We are in touch. There's some embassies in the world, like the French embassy has been very active. The French ambassador in Dhaka is very helpful. The American embassy hasn't been very helpful. The UK embassy hasn't even responded to our many, many mails and outcries we did. The Scandinavian embassies are helpful. They're listening, at least, maybe not responding, but listening. So, it's kind of a slow progress, but the big outcry I was hoping for, if you imprison senior journalists in dozens, if you accuse dozens of senior journalists of murder, they haven't been able to commit because they were at the time of the murders in their offices. They are accused of murders happening in different places at the same time. And they have not been given bail, even though there's not one single proof for any of these atrocities. And we have a Peace Nobel Prize laureate who is obviously not doing anything against it because he's naive or he's responsible. I don't know. Maybe he's too dumb to realize. I don't know. But he's not doing anything. And the world, I think the problem we have in Bangladesh is that the world is blinded. Diplomats are blinded. The West is blinded by Yunus and his Nobel Prize, They think, oh, well, Yunus is in charge down there. It will be all right. He's a good guy. He's going to do the right thing. He's not. But people are not reading. People are not watching. People are not talking to diplomats down there. They're just thinking, yeah, he's going to be fine. He's Yunus, And that is the biggest frustration I've had, when I talk to medias and tell them, please publish, please publish. We have been talking to all medias. And a few have reacted. There was an article in The Economist this week. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks back, but very rare, very few. And that stuns me. It stuns me because if you have a Nobel Prize, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate who is violating human rights and the press freedom, wouldn't you jump on that topic and write about? No, they're not. Why not? I think because they're blinded by Yunus. He has a very good PR department.
But that's the situation, though, isn't it? We sometimes, what's the expression? We rest on our laurels. So he's playing that up. But everything is deteriorating, crumbling really around him, and there is no response. And and the world is not really. But for me personally, I don't understand how India is not watching this, especially with, again, Turkey partnering with Pakistan and creating such an influence. Also, I think the Islamic aspect of this, is frightening to me as well. India talks about, being more, pluralistic now and that. But when you have that ideology, and we see that playing out again around the region, whether it's, Afghanistan or Pakistan or, in some of the regions how does India not see this and respond? How bad does it have to get? I just don't understand at this point. And I see, Prime Minister Modi is traveling, doing some traveling around the world. I don't know that he's going to be making a stop in Bangladesh, but he really needs to, I think, and address this, make a major statement. And I don't see it. And again, my own president is not making a statement. And I just, even in these other regions, he to your point about the gentleman in Bangladesh. I mean, same thing. Our president with Putin. He's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. No, he's a murderer. He poisons people. He imprisons people. He kills them. I mean, he's using chemical weapons. He's using and the president's like, well, he's not a bad guy. We had a nice conversation for an hour. What did you possibly talk about? I mean, what could you talk about? I mean, that you're destroying, murdering people, and just women and children. I mean, these drone attacks and things. I find it unbelievable. What does it take for a major leader like Trump or like Modi to say, "Hey, we got to get involved"? I just don't understand it. And to your point, you are doing the hard work, but no one's picking up on it. And what will it take? What will it take? That's my question.
And even to your point, in the US, I mean, that stunned me too. There is one guy, Michael Rubin. I don't know whether you know him. And Michael Rubin is a political analyst of exactly the countries you mentioned, Bob. And he works for the American Institute, I believe. He has published numerous articles on Bangladesh and on the area, on that, what you call the Asian theater. And he is exactly writing what you just said, right? He said, Bangladesh is going down to be Afghanistan 2-0. If the world doesn't react. And with Afghanistan 2-0 in Bangladesh, we're going to have a whole lot of trouble around, and exactly what you just said. He mentioned Turkey, he mentions all these countries working together against the West in a way and becoming more authoritarian. And if Bangladesh goes down that way, then we lose a lot of women, we lose a lot of girls' rights, we lose a lot of, we lose a country which has been done beautifully. I mean, of course, it wasn't perfect, Ever since I went there, 2003, I saw progress every year. It wasn't perfect. I mean, it wasn't a perfect democracy. Switzerland isn't a perfect democracy, The US isn't a perfect democracy we see today. But at least we give a say to everybody. We give a vote to everybody. Everybody can say, can go out safely, can vote, can run for office. In Bangladesh now, it seems like the next election is going to be like half of the population is going to take part and the rest is going to be cut out. You can't be a democracy like that. You can't be a democracy without the fourth pillar, which is a free media. How do you want to form an opinion if you don't have a free media? And the media has been throttled and suppressed by Yunus in a way that, I think it's unbelievable. And that there is no outcry there. It is an outcry, of course, like Reporters Without Borders, are of course publishing lots of stuff. There is stuff done, but the big outcry has not come. And we are in a year into this, not a few months, a year now. And I feel the worst. I mean, I have to say, I'm with all the work we've been doing, I still feel like increasingly hopeless, because I don't know anymore what to do,
No, and I feel much the same way, and that's what's frustrating to me because I'm watching there and a special interest because of our relationship, and the time we spent talking about it, and we've done all these series on Bangladesh. But to your point, if there's elections and the elections are controlled, and the outcome, like we see in Russia or what difference does it make in that people, why would they even bother to vote? Because it's a predetermined. If no freedom of the press and all alternative candidates or opposition candidates, I mean, they're not going to be allowed. They're going to keep that thumb. But I think to me the Islamic influence is frightening to me because of the way things are, and we see this in these other countries. But someplace like a Pakistan, it's a failed state, and it's relying so much on aid from other countries, United States, of course, which I don't understand at all. I mean, yes, they've got the nuclear bomb, but I don't understand this whole United States, being so soft with Pakistan. I don't get it, and because of all the things they're doing, and I don't even think the United States even cares about the regions that are around Pakistan that are being, put in a similar situation as Bangladesh. I mean, there needs to be like a major conference convened to talk about this region and to highlight the different areas. I mean, it's Bangladesh again, it's Balochistan, it's Sid, it's these other areas, and a conference needs to take place, and we need to talk about this and say, hey, this stuff's got to stop. And these failed states like a Pakistan, or even like a Turkey. Turkey's a mess, but to give Russia basically carte blanche to do whatever it wants to do. And of course, they're not involved with this particular region, but China is watching this, and China's, I think, got a hand in this, and then Taiwan is at risk, so now people are saying, depending how the United States, responded to Ukraine, will they respond the same way if something happens in Taiwan? And then, but the Asia theater itself, this is a concern. China's building up their navy. I mean, they're building islands. They're putting military installations. I mean, this is because they had the Road and Belt program, right? All these things. And I just don't see the United States or India responding. And they are the two superpowers, I think, that are the two biggest nations who could influence the world and say, hey, knock it off. Or we're going to come in, we're going to take a hand in this. I mean, Jimmy Carter passed away not too long ago, but he was so famous for going in and making sure free and fair elections and things like that. Where is our next Jimmy Carter? Who is our next Jimmy Carter? Right now, the president, of course, as you know, here in the United States, is ending this program where we're allowing immigrants, and not the billions that are pouring over the border, but I mean, Haitians. The Haitians, the country, I think it's 90% gang controlled. Where is our response? Even here, the United States, where's our response? Where's a United Nations response there? Where women and children are raped, murder. I mean, it's incredible. 90% gang controlled, but it's been a mess. I mean, all back to the first dictator. I mean, that's a horror show. But so you look at these regions, and I'm saying, I think India and United States need to have a sit down and say, hey, let's take a look at this world theater and how are we going to respond? Partner up. That's what I see as a necessity at this point. So, yeah.
Thank you to both of you. And I think my takeaway is that we have to keep on whatever we are doing in our little capacity, and we have to create awareness. So I would request both of you and our viewers, who watch us regularly, to keep supporting each other and create awareness. That's the least which we can do.
Well,
thank you very much, everybody.
I love what Charlotte is doing with the writing campaigns and the different things. And you've got a unique position too, because you're actually meeting these people and a lot of these leaders. So you're in a unique position, and I'm envious of that. That you've had the ability to do that, and I hope to do that myself at some point. But that is so phenomenal what you're doing, and I applaud you, and you keep it up. And I would love to meet you in person sometime. Really would. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you both of you for your time. Thank you.
We will. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you, Bob.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.